I need more accountability, right? We hear that all the time. What is that? What is actually underneath that? I need someone else who has a regulated central nervous system to help me regulate my central nervous system. From that regulated space, I then feel as though I have capacity to go and do what I need to do.
There's a fear that you are generating regarding the thing that you are procrastinating. And so what your body and what your brain is doing is saying, we are not in a position to do this right now. We are not in a position to navigate this. So we are going to cope by pushing this thing to the side and coming back to it later when we are more regulated and in a better state. Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back. It's Emilia. Evolvers, we are in a good mood right now, and we hope that we can give you that energy in this episode. With that being said, I am excited for this one, and I feel like I'm excited for every single one. And honestly, it's not a lie, guys. I get excited talking about this stuff because I know how much the world needs it. You and I, we talked about how much the world needs Evolve and how few people, not few, how many more people there are in the world that haven't heard about Evolve and how they're just waiting for Bianca Thomas and Emilia Smith to be introduced into their world. And that excites me. So this is another opportunity to speak into the lives of beautiful human beings and to specifically talk about procrastination. This topic came from and was inspired by a dialogue around a private conversation, and I will keep it anonymous as always. But long story short, there was this gentleman whom I was talking to, I was observing. And he started to share that as he came towards the end of 2024, he had these assignments that he needed to do, and there was deadlines to them. And he found himself, and he was sharing with the group, he found himself really struggling to get them done. And now he used the word procrastination, which is what so many of us use, right? When we want to get something done, but we're not doing it. And what he said was something along the lines of, I'm finding myself when I think about what I have to get done, these tasks, I know what is required to get them done. It's not like I don't know. But then if I actually pull myself to the table to like start typing these things out, these essays, Emilia, like, I just don't want to do it. Like, I have parts of me that are coming out that are just totally and wholeheartedly rejecting doing what I know I need to do. It's not like I don't know. It's not like I don't know how. I just don't want to, and I don't feel like doing it. And so I not only resonated very deeply with that, but what we learned and what I shared is that sounds like, quacks like a duck, sounds like a duck, smells like a duck, like it sounds like procrastination, right? And he's like, yeah, it definitely is. And we got going, we got saying, and I had shared with him what I'm excited to share in this podcast episode, which is essentially, not only does that look like procrastination, but because of the context that I knew this gentleman in, it actually ties back to some childhood stuff where long story short, this person's prime motivator was to stack everything on his plate so that he would then leverage the benefits of hyper-focusing in on something before a deadline, which a lot of us do, right? Like, and that's actually not a bad thing. And this is what I shared with him. I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We tend to label procrastination as bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It might just be how you're wired. It just might be how you work. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of research that can show that you can actually use procrastination to your advantage. And when we unpeeled these layers, we understood that because of his mother at one point saying to him, "You will never amount to anything." That one statement that she had said to him way back in his world, and his response to that saying, pretty much, "Watch me." That response created that entire software programming within his world that led to, I'm going to set my mind to something, and I'm going to think about what I'm going to do, think about how I want to do it. And then just before, and no earlier than, I'm going to use all my faculties to get it done in that one setting. And I said, man, that sounds like one of the 6 types of procrastination. So this episode is all about how to overcome procrastination. And I'm a big proponent of, if you don't know, number 1, where it comes from, number 2, what type of procrastinator you are, it's going to be really difficult to overcome that. So that's what I hope we can do for every single one of our listeners in this episode.
Well said. Something I want to highlight just really quick. You said that procrastination is a tool that you can utilize if you have studied it and if you practice it. We are not saying do what a lot of people do, which is convince yourself of a narrative that you work better under pressure and then rigidly enforce pressure on yourself that's unnecessary and will likely lead to you making mistakes, because most of us haven't taught ourselves how to work well under pressure through intentional practice and not just by sheer shit show, for like a better phrase. Like the amount of clients I have that will literally say, well, I work better under pressure. I'm like, really?
That's exactly what he said.
Have you studied it? Like, have you tried not doing that and not dysregulating your nervous system because you're actually beyond anxious and you can't get yourself to do work until it's the last minute and then you have no choice?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how much better your body would feel if you like maybe didn't do that, you know? And I'm being super playful right now, but
so true.
People really believe that procrastination is just that you're lazy. You're just lazy. If you just figured it out, you wouldn't be doing this. Or people say that to themselves, and it's absolutely not true. I mean, if you look at the root of procrastination and where it comes from, procrastination is actually adaptive. Because think about it, procrastination comes from anxiety and it comes from fear. There's a fear that you are generating regarding the thing that you are procrastinating. And so what your body and what your brain is doing is saying, we are not in a position to do this right now. We are not in a position to navigate this. So we are going to cope by pushing this thing to the side and coming back to it later when we are more regulated and in a better state. If you hear it that way, it's actually adaptive. It actually makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. The thing that is destructive is that most of us are fearing things and are having anxiety about things that aren't actually fearful. There's nothing actually scary about writing a paper. The task of just sitting down and typing on a computer is not scary. But it's the meanings that we are assigning to these things of, oh my God, I have this huge paper, and if I don't do well, I'm going to fail. And if I fail, then I'm going to flunk out of school. And if I flunk out of school, I'm going to be a loser and end up being a janitor. And oh my God, and I'm never going to get married, and I'm never going to have kids, and my life is going to be a disaster. And how many of you guys have been there? I have, more times than I want to admit.
Yeah.
That is why procrastination is dangerous. It's because of the narrative that we have about the things that we're doing, which are causing us to then procrastinate, thinking it's helping us with our anxiety, but it actually makes it that much worse. And so if you can learn why you're having anxiety about this thing that's in front of you and actually develop more helpful tools to cope with it, you'll be so much more productive. You'll get so much more done. Your body will feel so much better. And you'll actually be able to feel a sense of pride in the work that you are putting in, because you're not cramming everything. You're actually taking intentional effort to do the things that you want to do and that you're trying to do.
Yeah. That's exactly, in the meaning underneath that, to the core belief, or the words that his mother had shared to him when he was really, really young. Super abusive mother, right? In so many ways, but you'll never amount to anything, right? That is his exiles, his parts are just hearing that again and again and again. And the if then, right, and the Socratic questioning. And I could call it, because we have trained eyes, we've been training on this, we know this stuff, right? And not a lot of people do. And so I'm seeing all the meaning making that's happening, and like just wanting to be like, this is what you do. But like, obviously, you need, like, I got to get that permission slip before I go and hammer. Like, all you got to do is this, blah, 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 right? Like, uh, it developed this programming, this steamrolling part of him that really, really had to make sure that he built that narrative of, well, I do great under pressure. As a matter of fact, I've only been able to write my books as a result of that, right? And this narrative is really, really deep. And so it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. However, imagine you could still have that competitive edge of a tool, but without all of the stress and anxiety and overwhelm and confusion around yourself. I regarded it to him as like self-abdication. Imagine you could have the benefits of that procrastination without all the downsides that you experience, without all of this unnecessary cortisol and adrenaline in your system, and then the self-guilting, self-blaming, and self-shaming that then comes therein, because every time you pull yourself to the table and try to do it, there's this part that's preventing you from doing it, because that would prove that you have evidence to the contrary of this wild and tangled narrative, which so many of us have, right? And it got him opening, being like, right, so I don't necessarily, like, that's not actually, it's just, it makes sense why a lot of people don't really get into the root of their procrastination, right? And I have another client in mind, that was the label that he used, right? Like, I'm just finding myself procrastinating. That's just the symptom on the surface. It always drops down into a root, right? And something that you mentioned is a lot of us have what's called low frustration tolerance. Frustration is the rub that we feel, the anxiety, the confusion, the whatever the not low grade, the low valence emotions that we feel when we want to achieve something or we want to move the needle on something. And we feel literally like in this stress response of, I either freeze and don't do anything, right? Just total shutdown. We fawn, or we like go and take care of everyone else's needs before our own, or we just try to fight at like, okay, well, I'm just going to do this. I have this one client that's like hammering her to-do list. I have 100 things to do and I'm just going to fight and chip away. But like the one thing that she really, really needs to do is at the very, very bottom. So she's going to fight her way through that to-do list, but she's going to feel like crap because that one thing that she needed to do that she's procrastinating is at the very bottom, right? What if we were to put that one up there, right? Like it's a whole thing. And then there's some people that, so we talked about fight, we talked about freeze, we talked about fawn, and then we talk about flight. There's some people that just are consistently running away from that frustration, that overwhelm, that anxiety, that fear. And they just totally fly away from whatever it is, the one thing that they need to get done. Who has been there?
Again, when you look at it under a microscope, it makes sense. You don't even need a microscope. If you really sit down and you're like, why am I avoiding this so badly? You usually can get to a good root. Like you don't. One thing that I also want to make sure that I say is not everything is rooted in childhood. I think what's one of the biggest things why a lot of people avoid talking about like growth and mental health and whatever, because they're like, not everything stemmed from childhood. Like I don't want to tie everything back to a childhood, whatever. And it's like, that's totally fine. Because that's not true for everybody. Not everybody had like these terrible things happen and whatever. But if you even just in the moment, just look at your behavior. What is currently happening? So if we were to do something called a functional analysis, which is basically to say, what is the purpose and what is the function of the behavior that I am currently doing? What I need to do is sit here and write this paper. What I am currently doing is I'm adjusting things on my desk, or I'm cleaning my bathroom. One of my clients, that's what she always does whenever she gets anxious. She goes and cleans her bathroom. I'm like, hey, how many bottles of Clorox do you have in there? She's like, shut the hell up.
Back up on back
so
up.
She's like, literally, shut up. It's so funny.
That's great.
But I'm cleaning my bathroom. I'm scrolling through social media. I'm looking at all of these other things that I need to be doing that I'm telling myself I need to do instead of the thing that I know I need to do.
Yeah.
When a functional analysis, it's pretty easy to see there is something going on in your mind, whether it's a narrative, an uncomfortable emotion that you don't like dealing with, a memory. Maybe it is something from your past, but there's something going on that is making it hard for you to do the current thing.
Yeah.
And so what you would need to do is to be able to understand, why am I trying to run away from this? Even just a question as simple as that, right?
Or why
Your
do I wait
mind-
until the last minute? That's usually what I hear a lot of people say too.
Right.
Which is the
If
same
you
thing.
actually, 100%, if you actually give yourself permission to be quiet for a couple of minutes and just sit there, 9 times out of 10, the answer will come to you. You won't need another soul.
Mhm.
You will not need another soul. The answer will come
Yeah.
to you. Because I feel anxious because I'm afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Oh, good one. Okay. What happens if you fail? And then the narrative continues and continues and continues. So step number one, if you are trying to stop procrastinating, if you're trying to navigate procrastination, number one, understand the root. Why am I procrastinating? What is the function that this behavior is serving? Because again, procrastination is not a cause, it's an effect. You are procrastinating because of something. So why are you engaging in the behavior? What function is it serving? Is it helping you to not feel scared? Is it helping you to not feel insecure? Does it give you temporary relief that you don't have to do this hard thing that you don't feel capable of doing? What is the function that your behavior is serving? Then number two, based on the answer that you end up developing, then you come up with the actual coping plan. And I know that you're writing an article about this, and it's going to dive more into the 6 forms of procrastination. So that's something that you guys can utilize too in tandem with this. But before diving into all of that, really understand, why am I doing this? And then what is it that I actually need? Okay, I'm feeling really anxious. I'm really afraid that I'm going to fail. What I need is for someone to just give me a little pep talk. What I really need is for my partner to cuddle me and tell me that everything is going to be okay. What I really need, honestly, what actually would help right now is if I got a little comfort and I went down to the store and I got ice cream and I just let myself eat it and then I wrote this paper. Whatever, right? Give yourself what you need in that moment to actually be able to cope. Because if you actually cope with the real feeling that is coming up, because again, procrastination is a effect, not a cause. If you can navigate the cause, you'll be able to do the thing that you need to do. You won't procrastinate because your actual fear, your actual anxiety has been remedied.
You know, it's a really cool thing that I've learned in the consistent research around this topic, around like the low frustration, specifically low frustration tolerance, aka the inability to self-regulate through the emotions that bring up meanings, or the meanings that we have, all that stuff. When it comes to surface level procrastination, and this is what I hear from a lot of clients in the community specifically, is to that question be, I need more accountability, right? We hear that all the time. What is that? What is actually underneath that? I need someone else who has a regulated central nervous system to help me regulate my central nervous system. From that regulated space, I then feel as though I have capacity to go and do what I need to do. And so for this person specifically, that is what he needed. He needed accountability. And so we've set up an accountability group, and now we have quiet or silent working sessions where we are actually doing the thing together, because ultimately what's underneath all of that is that he on his own accord doesn't have that ability to self-regulate and do this work, because it's really difficult, right? Easier said than done, B. You and I have lost a little bit of sight of how difficult that is. When you don't have the ability to self-regulate, that thought process, even just that Socratic questioning, right? That you just did, that understanding what your narrative is for a lot of people. And this I know because of my work with people who do recognize their trauma. That prefrontal cortex or narrative making is difficult to access when we're in a triggered state. And a lot of the times we are operating just in a triggered state where our central nervous system is just in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So getting to that regulated space is so fundamental. And so that's why one of my favorite things is when I hear someone saying, I'm procrastinating, I need more accountability. I'm like, yes, you do. What's underneath that, right? And then usually that opens up the door for these conversations to be had, and we get to understand and explore people's parts and what are the coping mechanisms that you do have at your disposal. You and I have done so many conversations with people of like, what survival kit do you have to cope with these emotions, specifically when it comes to writing a paper or having that difficult conversation with your mother-in-law or talking to your partner about sex and consent. Like, what coping mechanisms do you really have to regulate yourself and self-regulate? And when you don't have access to those, it's okay to ask for co-regulation for others. And that's where therapy and coaching and having accountability partners is so fundamental to helping you get to a state where you can access those parts of your brain to understand the root, to identify what type of procrastinator you are. What are the tendencies? What is that functional analysis that you have access to when you're regulated, right? So yes, I am writing an article on this, and I just wanted to share that because that's going to be in the article. And
thank you for sharing.
I just think it's such a compliment to what you were just saying about that with people and how it comes right to you when you are actually alone. But the caveat that I would add there is when you're alone and more regulated, right? That takes time. That takes practice. And it's so accessible to everyone listening to this podcast when you have the right people in your corner to help you teach that, right?
That's why getting a coach or a therapist is so critical. And that's why, we're so grateful for all of our clients, because they trust us to be that accountability buddy for them. And we have never had a client, quote unquote, fail. Ever.
Nope.
We have never had a client fail. I have never had a client who actually was as bad as they thought they were. And I know you haven't either. It's because when you actually have a good person in your corner, you're blown away by what you can eventually do. Now, I say eventually intentionally because it does take time.
Yeah.
Just like overcoming procrastination, just like learning any skill, because all of this is a skill. Everything we talk about on this show is a skill. And if you haven't listened to previous episodes, we do dive into this in a lot of other episodes. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do. But everything that we talk about is a skill set. And if you can understand the skills of how to do these things, you can learn how to do anything.
Heck yeah.
And that's coming from someone like me who never felt capable of doing anything. And now I see all of the things that I do and it's like, holy hell, how the hell did we get here? But it's like, I know how I got here. Look at my calendar. Look at my systems. Look at everything I've done. I didn't create this, but I followed it. And I was eventually able to figure it out. And for every single one of you, it's the same exact thing. If you have good people in your corner, they'll be able to help you to learn how to do all of this. And then eventually you'll get to the point where you don't always need somebody there to be able to do things. Eventually you can self-regulate. Now, it doesn't mean that you'll never need people and you should never have people around you. It just means you have gotten to a place where you can trust yourself to get to where you need to be until somebody else is available if you still need it.
Right.
And that's 1,000%. A beautiful thing. That's interdependence. That's interdependence. I got me and you got you and we got each other.
I got you, girl.
I got you, babe. The Sonny and Cher song.
Oh, that just, no, I didn't think of that one. I thought of, and I got you, girl. A little Akon.
You mean Chris
Nobody
Brown?
wanna see us together, but it don't matter.
Oh my God.
But
That's
I got
not what
you.
I thought you
girl.
were singing.
Oh, throwback. Anywho, we got you, gals,
The
guys.
songs that you tell me that you know and the ones that you don't make no sense.
Makes no sense. There will be no pattern. Try to figure it out.
No, there's no pattern. Like my pattern recognition detector's like, doesn't work because they make no sense.
I know. It's fun. We have fun, right? And the half of it is because of my crazy ass. We love it.
Emilia's tapped out of her mind.
I am.
It's amazing. It
We
really
have
is.
fun.
It's ridiculous. All right. Anyways, we're going off the rails here.
High grade
What's your-
function. High grade
your
anxiety creates a beautiful mess. All right. Let's get on the rails, right, Emilia?
What's
Okay.
your
Where
episode
is my episode
suggestion?
suggestion? It is 3:38. How are you investing your spare the tractor beam? No, your spare time. And I'm doing air quotes for anyone who is listening this just simply audioly. How about you, babe? I mean, babe. Same thing.
The amount of times that Emilia will also text me and say babe when she meant to say B. And I'm always like, ew. What are you insinuating over there?
Hey, babe. I mean, B.
At least once a week. It's
I called
so
my mom
funny.
babe the other day. That was hilarious. Or it was my sister. I just call everyone babe. What's up, babe? Anyhow.
Oh my God. 286, how to ease your anxiety. If you were feeling anxious before, maybe us being buffoons helped a little bit.
Hopefully. I hope so.
We hope
Like
you
I said.
enjoyed this episode. We hope it provided so much value to you. And again, please, if you are struggling with this, reach out. We got you. We know all the ways. And we
We
can't
do.
wait to work with you and see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.